Hello and welcome back to the Pain Scale. Um, I am here with you today with a video where we're going to talk about why it's not a bad thing to be an individual and why you should you know really enjoy being an individual. And I'm making this video today because over this past year, I saw quite a few things talking about hyper individualism, which is like some videos or something. I didn't really get into those because when I heard like hyper individualism or when I saw people like talk about being an individual versus being in a group of people. They almost made it seem like a curse, to be an individual. So, but I looked up like today a definition of hyper individualism, and basically, hyper individualism is supposed to be somebody who's so individual they have like well, from what I took from it, like a disregard for society, which that's not a bad thing. Being an individual is so great because it's like you recognize, yourself, that you are an independent being, on this planet. But I believe once start to become, I mentioned in a past video, when you start to become self-aware and start recognizing yourself as an individual, that's how you start to become more and more intelligent. Intelligent isn't, you know, if you haven't figured out by now, directly correlated by A's and B's that you got in school or what college degree that you got. To me, intelligence is correlated to, or you start to become more intelligent once you start to become more self aware and you start to become an individual and you start to have your own opinions, excuse me, about things. Which a lot of people can't do that. So many people are so caught up in being in groups of people. Which George Carlin, I've mentioned him before, one of my favorite, comedians. Some people have called him, um, you know, like I think somebody called him like a scholar or something. Like when I was looking at the YouTube chats, but like George Carlin, he was a very self-aware human being. Um, and he understood, the bullshit that was taking place in within society and the world that we live in. And he spoke about that, and it sounded, so crazy to some people. It's almost funny, but it's the truth though. And one thing that George Carlin said, like, he likes individuals versus groups of people, which I can highly agree with, because when you get in with a group of people, you start to lose yourself in it, um, and that could be, a group of it could be any, that could be two people, three people, four people, 500, whatever. You could start to lose yourself, and you could start to lose, your not only your independence, but your viewpoint on things in the world. But I guess that's really what groups are designed for, is to strip your sense of self away from you. Um, and there's many groups of people out there like that. And I've named these before, um, whether they be religious people, um, capitalist people, business people, stuff like that. The military, especially, I feel is, they have their hive mind and, stuff like that, which reality, they'll tell you, hey, war is good, we're going to go over there, fight these bad guys. But in reality, it's why do you have to go fight or start a war with somebody when all this stuff can be talked out in reality? Or if human beings start to like, oh, hey, we should help each other out, and I think that's gonna take me into my next point. What are other groups of people, that are other groups of people, excuse me. There's a lot. There's people that group together based on race, nationality, um, again, religion, stuff like that. Which in reality, that's stupid. Like, why are we just grouping people together by race and nationality? People are different. Everybody is different. You know that's how people become racist. Like once they start to get into these groups and stuff like that, like I'm black. That means we're the best, or white, or Asian, or Hispanic, whatever you are. Once you start to get into those little groups, that's like where you're based on like race or nationality. That's when people, again, really start to get racist and stupid and shit like that. Because from one human being to another, we're really no different. Like, sure, like based on the climate, some people evolved, human beings evolved in versus other human beings, we look different. That's all there is to it. But genetically, we're the same. So it's like, it's like at this point, that racism, that's they're the top of the stupid list. So, but again, let's continue though now into some positives about being an individual. And what's great about being an individual person, when you start to become an individual, you're able to start to see, um, well, the stupid shit I've mentioned, the stupid shit in the world, like George Carlin, you start to see stupid things in the world, like, um, when you start again, that's when you start forming your own opinion, like when, um, people are now more and more starting to see, over consumerism and stuff like that. And, they're starting to teach more about that. And, there's a lot of YouTube videos out there now teaching people about over consumerism and, teaching people, like you don't need, to buy, new clothes every week, or you don't have to like buy like a new pair of shoes, like like you don't have to by the end of 2024, you don't have to have a new 100, a new 100 pairs of shoes, at the end of 2024, because you really don't need that stuff. And it's bad for the environment because none of that stuff is really recyclable, no recyclable, and some of that stuff they say, oh sure, like some of this is recyclable, but other parts of it may not be. So like if you get like I remember watching Buy Now on Netflix. I mentioned that before, if I'm not mistaken, a shopping conspiracy. She was this chemical engineer. She went into the store and she picked out like this bottle, or sorry, like this jar, or like this plastic jar of something. And I guess it said recyclable on it, and I guess part of it was recyclable, but like the top of it wasn't. Which some people are like, oh, it's just the top. No, that shit adds up, over time, and adds to the waste and stuff like that. So once you start to become an individual, you'll start to realize like, oh wow, like I don't need more of this stuff. Um, but if you were a part of a group, some people say like, oh, we got to support businesses and support local business, all that stuff. It's like, it's really, buying more shit, it's just not, that's not a good excuse. It really isn't. Some people say like, oh, this is my livelihood. I understand that, but it's like, human beings just have to find a new way, other than, buying shit just for the sake of it and polluting the planet. Because if you really, if you really think about what overconsumerism is, um, it's, we're basically buying ourselves to death. Is what overconsumerism. We're buying ourselves to death. The more shit that we buy, the more shit that we throw away and dispose of. That's stacking up, and people don't even care. They throw like I think I remember seeing a long time. It was like part of Africa, and I think it was like from a company from Germany or something. They had dumped like computer parts in this part of Africa. Shit that can't be recycled and toxic and shit. They didn't even give a shit. About what would happen to the people there. So it's really not worth it to keep buying shit. Just buying shit to our death. That's Yeah, that'd be quite an end to humanity. But we'll see. If more people become individuals and can think for themselves, we probably won't be in that situation. But let me continue on to the next part. What's so great about being an individual is you start to realize that you have yourself. You know, and why that's important is because there are so many people out there that will say, um, I don't have anybody else. Nobody loves me. Nobody cares about me. Which I felt that way too before. So I guess I feel that way too still. Now I do feel that way. Sometimes too. But um, I know I shouldn't because at the end of the day, I have myself, and I mentioned that before. At the end of the day, the person that you're going to go through with throughout this whole life with is yourself. And it's very important to realize that because you have to love yourself. Truly you do. And again, I think that's something I mentioned, I'll say it 100 times again. You have to love yourself. Um because if you can't love yourself, then it's like, you're like in a kind of like a purgatory. I almost want to say it's like, like if you hate yourself, like you're living with the person that you hate every day, and it's literally yourself. Like the eyes that you're seeing through is the person that you hate, and it's yourself. That's sounds kind of scary, I guess. To some would sound kind of scary to some people, but you have to realize, you are a worthy human being. You deserve love, especially from yourself. The first person you should first and always get love from is yourself. Don't expect love from anybody else because, people come and go in this life, whether that's, again, that's something else I mentioned before, whether that be through the passage of time or, people just, you know, go. Sometimes, even yourself, like at some point, you have to realize, it's time to leave these people behind or move on from these people, whether it's a significant of friends, family, whatever. You have to move on at some point, especially if you're not happy at some place, or don't make yourself small to fit into a place when when you're obviously, you have growing pains from staying in that box and you just don't want to be there anymore in a situation or a relationship of any kind. You just want to break away, you know. But yeah, let me get to my next point on why it's great to be an individual. Next point is um, you can do whatever you want, you know, when you're an individual, Um, and yeah, this is a point I'm going to end off on because I think this is definitely the most important. Well, one of the most important. Well, all three of these points have been most really important, but I think this one is very important. Is like as an individual, you start to realize what you like to do. Like what do you really like to do? Like I really like to read, or like to go for a hike or something like that. You start to realize what you like to do. Like, this is my favorite TV show and I want to watch it, to the end, whether you're in a group of people or like you're always hanging out with somebody, you might have to compromise, you know, on what you want to do, you know, like, oh, like I want to watch this, but, um, other five friends that I'm with, they want to watch this movie, so I'm gonna have to compromise, even though I don't want to watch it. I will compromise and sit here and watch it, with them. You know, which to a degree, that's not a bad thing because I guess a relationship is give and take. But me personally, again as an individual myself, I realize if I want to do something, I'm going to go do it. I'm not going to sit and wait around for the group. Like if I don't want to watch this movie, I will say goodbye to the group for now, and I will go off and do what I want to do. There's nothing wrong with that, not at all. You know, and it's also a good thing, about this point of being able to do whatever you want. Is like you don't have to wait for people. That's always been my motto. Like if um, I believe I actually saw this like on an inspirational quote on Instagram Reels before, but if you wait um to do something with somebody, um or a group of people, you might end up just waiting your whole life and never doing it. You have to learn how to do things by yourself too, which that's not a bad thing at all. Some people might see somebody at a restaurant, eating by themselves, and they could say like, "Oh wow, that's I feel really bad for that guy. He has nobody, um, or no one to talk to." Which in reality, that's not such a bad thing. Like I like to go. I think I mentioned this before. I like to go to Korean barbecue, uh, and I eat my heart out. At Korean barbecue, knowing I don't have to share with anybody. Like, oh, like give me this, and this, and yeah, I just go off from there. I enjoy myself. So there's nothing wrong with doing stuff. I used to go to movies by myself. Not a big fan of the theater. These days I'm more of a definitely more of a homebody. Um, but yeah. Um, I used to go to places just anywhere by myself. And sometimes honestly, I used to feel sometimes I feel anxiety about being by myself, but now to current day, I'm so much better with that now, just doing things by myself. So, yeah, don't ever think it's a bad thing, or don't let anybody ever tell you it's a bad thing to be raised. I remember hearing somebody say before that they saw somebody that they were previously friends with at a convention. Um, and they said, um, this person didn't say hi to me, even though like we knew each other, and he was just sitting by himself, um, like a weirdo or something. Like, yeah, he was basically called him weird, for um sitting by himself and doing things by himself at this convention. And it's like I did not like that comment at all. Because it's like there's nothing wrong with that. Don't let people make you feel weird for doing things um on your own, because you're not a weirdo for doing things on your own. You're really not. You're in all honesty, um for doing things by yourself, not only are you, again, I, as an individual, are you smarter? You can do whatever you want, but you're brave for doing that. To me at least, for in a world where, well, I guess not everywhere. Um, in places like Japan is more like an introvert's paradise, but I've never been before. But places like the United States, there will be people who are very judgmental, about you doing things alone. Which again, just ignore those people. And if you get weird looks from people, I don't think I've ever gotten weird looks. Because usually people don't care. Usually people, they're thinking about themselves. But ever get weird looks, or you know think people are talking about you. Usually they're not. They don't care. But there will always be, you know, and the average person in society, there will always be people that will talk. They won't talk to your face, but they will talk behind your back. So, but I'm not saying be paranoid about that or anything. But just know, like, people will talk. There will always be those people who will talk, whether you know or not. There will be people you talk. So that talk. So just like that one person, when I heard, back to that, when I heard, this person that they used to know looked weird at the convention, just by himself. That's, again, I did not like that comment. I don't think that's a very really a very healthy comment for anybody. That doesn't really teach people It doesn't teach people anything, other than to be judgmental of others. But they're people. Human beings will be human beings. So, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end off this video here. If you are tuning in, thank you very much for checking out the pain scale again, and you have a great day. Thank you.